Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there and, more importantly, staying safe. And I hope you guys are safe from overnight last night. There's been some active weather that's been just moving from yesterday evening all the way to this morning, and it continues this morning and will continue throughout the morning and day today. The severe weather threat today won't be anything compared to yesterday, but we will have a severe weather threat across areas of the southeast. We'll talk about that, and then we'll talk about the snowy side, which is ongoing right now. All this is ongoing right now. It's snowing in portions of the Ohio Valley, so please let me know what you're seeing snowfall-wise, and let me know if you've seen any damage out there as you're waking up this morning along the Gulf Coast, and just definitely put in the comments what you're seeing. I'm sure snow-wise, some people are going to be disappointed, some people are going to be surprised. But, you know, we do the best we can here, and we try to figure this out for you guys. But there definitely is that wild card with that dry slot that's going to knock some snowfall totals down. And we've been talking about that over the last few videos. It really started to emerge big time about 36 hours ago. But anyways, we're going to figure it out for today for you guys, give you a big update. And then stay tuned towards the end. You know, we haven't talked about past this storm at all. But I'm going to briefly mention it because I don't think we're done with the active times. I think we have some more big-time winter storms on the way as we maybe get into the first part of February, maybe even the last part of January. And I think some active times are ahead. I know a lot of people in the Southeast are wondering about, what about us? And I get it, but you got to hope that the Southeast ridge just goes away or gets smashed. And it is a strong ridge. Once it gets established, it's very hard to knock it down. And that is what's pushing all these low pressures north of the Southeast. So we're going to figure it out for you guys and really begin to focus in on what's next in tonight's video. So definitely stay tuned for that. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. I appreciate the people who've done the super thanks, which they throw a little bit money towards these videos, and I really appreciate supporting me that way. People who have joined the channel over the last 10 to 15 days. And just thank y'all for the support. Like the video if you like it. And if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over them and so others can do so too. So we take a look at what's going on with this storm. It has that classic high-end convection on the south end and just big plume of moisture on the north end. And there's so much convection ongoing here, it's created a little bit of kind of robbing of moisture to the northern extent of this storm, which we kind of talked about in last night's video. But this comet head feature, this upper level low, this is really going to bring in some big time snowfall, probably into Indianapolis and in Illinois a little bit later this morning. It's already working its way in. For example, in St. Louis, it's snowing pretty heavily this morning. We'll talk about that. And then these storms continue to march through areas of the southeast. We look at the Storm Prediction Center, and we'll talk about this more here in a second. But we got a slight risk up. Nothing has increased. You still got a tornado risk a little bit down here and one up here in the eastern areas of North Carolina where the kinematics really not max out, but they're the highest down here. Thermodynamics are the highest down here where you're just, you know, closer to the south in general, where thermodynamics is the higher temperatures, higher moisture. Kinematics is closer to the low pressure where you have better wind profiles that support severe weather and the spinning in the atmosphere. So we'll talk about that here in a second. But let's break down a couple areas. So this is the HRRR model, but what we want to do here is look at radar scope. Talk about what's going on. St. Louis, it's snowing pretty good. You had one report around just before 5 a.m. that reported rain and snow, but I think for most of you folks here, it is snowing pretty good. This has been a very marginal setup, and I wouldn't be surprised if some totals did not reach what you were expecting at all. I thought, honestly, in my opinion, I would have thought the temperatures would have cooled a little bit more, but there was certain areas that it just snowed like crazy at 33, 34 degrees. And yes, it's snowing, but as soon as the precipitation lightens up somewhat, sometimes you'll go back to rain. Tulsa experienced that last night where temperatures were such a big issue with winter weather that, I mean, they kind of went back to rain, even though it showed a blob of blue on the radar. I mentioned it on Twitter last night that Tulsa was struggling on how to winter. But anyways, it's all jokes. On my Twitter, it's not always serious. We like to joke around too, but it's all fun humor and good humor. But St. Louis, you got a big band of snow over you folks right now. We'll jump up to Chicago. We're just going to take a look at a couple radars this morning on the fly. For you folks up into Chicago, what is it looking like? Definitely all cold enough for snow up here. Milwaukee, just south of Milwaukee, reporting snow, but it probably is starting to snow a little bit in Milwaukee here this morning. Snow in Chicago, you got some heavier bands moving in from the south. So if you're a snow fan, you're certainly liking that this morning. We look at Indianapolis, and there is some heavy bands pivoting into the area. But I mean, look right here. You got a report of rain about 7 minutes ago. So just because you see a bunch of blue on this map doesn't mean that it's snowing. Let me know what you're seeing in Indianapolis. I know there's a meteorologist that is a great follow on Twitter that, he posted a video a couple hours ago and it was snowing really heavily. But the temperatures are really struggling. They really are. But for example, down here, I was snowing in Evansville early this morning and kind of like 11, 12 o'clock last night. But it's definitely raining down here now. Y'all, I wouldn't be surprised if Evansville didn't really pick up anything. So really, it was looking like a chance of a good front end thump of snow, but maybe not so much. But let me know what y'all are seeing down there. I've had a couple people comment for that area. There might be some disappointed people. Cincinnati, you're struggling. You probably saw snow this morning. I didn't wake up as early as I wanted to. I definitely got glued to the bed this morning. But there's reports of rain and sleet where it's looking like snow in your area. But either way, I think some of these areas will go to a last back-end thump of snow tonight. And I think later this afternoon, I think Indianapolis is going to pick up several inches of snow a little bit later today if it's not puking snow right now. You go over to Cleveland, see what you're seeing out here in Cleveland. You're starting to switch to snow now. The dynamic cooling is beginning to happen, but snowing in Cleveland for the most part. A little bit of mixing occurring in central Ohio. My folks down here in Pittsburgh, see what you're seeing out here, and moisture beginning to enter the area. This is your chance in Pittsburgh. If you're going to see snow, you got to see it right now, because you're going to go to rain, definitely, and you're going to get dry slot in Pittsburgh. But the moisture beginning to close in on Pittsburgh. You've been dealing with some dry air. Kind of a dry slot, not a dry slot, but just some dry air, but the moisture is quickly filling in. If you're going to see snow in Pittsburgh, you got to see it now. North of town, you're doing a lot better. But I'll look at the Binghamton radar, and this is the last radar we look at. We talked about this frontogenesis band, and here it is. It's coming in. It's looking like it's trying to get into New York City, but snow about to slam Scranton. It's probably going to take a while before the column moisturizes, and then it's going to snow pretty heavily, I think. Binghamton, knocking on the door, but this is the band we talked about. We zone out. This is kind of that leading band, New York City. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see. Trying to limit the ums. I've been umming a lot lately. But here we go. Some moisture trying to enter your area. Let me know what you're seeing in northern New Jersey, New York City. Some blues showing up, but you're probably dealing with temperature issues. But it's definitely going to be interesting what y'all are seeing in New York City for a brief period this morning. But anyways, let's look at the HRRR model. See what's going on. Based off the model, this pink is this is some sleet. You're not going to be dealing with any freezing rain in this setup over in the Ohio Valley. Now, it might be different over here in the mountains of West Virginia, and then Western Maryland. We'll talk about that here in a second. But, it's going to struggle. Indianapolis is going to get very close to some just mixing with rain. Same thing with Ohio. You're going to get dry slot in Ohio. But whoever can stay in this band right into here, of all snow and heavy snow, and I'm speaking of Indianapolis, up to Detroit, maybe even trying in Cleveland, down here into southern areas of Illinois. Chicago could get some lake-enhanced snow. I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago overachieves with this system. And then as we're going through, here comes the low pressure. Dry air begins to get into all the way up into central Ohio as early as this morning into around lunchtime. Your moisture stops. You switch to all rain. But then areas like back here in Indianapolis, stays all snow potentially. And, a big thumping of snow really moves in about midday for Detroit. But Cleveland, it shows it mixing around midday and then switching to all rain. And maybe some back-end moisture. But I got a feeling in Ohio there's going to be some disappointed people. I have a feeling there is going to. Just based off the trends I'm seeing this morning and I was starting to see last night, some people might not get as much snow as they think. But who knows? I'm not sure what's going on right now, how much snow y'all got on the ground. But this is a pretty stout dry slot, bringing in a lot of warm air advection in this region. There's going to be a big lull in the moisture. But, areas like in the southern Michigan could get more snow than maybe what they thought. But this back-end moisture moves in, and there could be some big-time snowfall, 1 to 2 inch per hour rates into areas of north-central Indiana, maybe as far south as Indianapolis, and we'll see what happens with this for sure. And then some back-end moisture pulls through, and maybe some of those areas, excuse me, they were kind of whiff with the snowfall, starts to fill in a little bit more. You got more cold air to deal with, and then you got snow showers flying around throughout the entire Ohio Valley. tomorrow morning. This is that front end thump of snow we were talking about. This is moving in. We'll see what happens. Like I said, Pittsburgh, if you're going to see snow, it's going to have to happen right now, between right now and about mid to late morning. You're going to switch to rain, run out of precipitation. But down here, moisture beginning to move into these areas right into here. Some freezing rain. You're going to deal with some sleet, some snow into western Maryland and the far kind of notch area or panhandle of eastern West Virginia and far northern Virginia. Basically, these higher elevations could definitely get into a winter storm kind of thing. And one thing I didn't pull up and I just thought about was the watches and warnings. I do apologize for that, but definitely missed that this morning. But anyways, chances are wherever you're located, you probably know if you're under a winter storm winter storm warning or an advisory. But here comes these big snowfall rates. We'll stop it here. This is late morning. At this point this morning, heavy snow moving into northern sections of Pennsylvania. Heavy snow begins to move into Binghamton, Scranton, and looks like just flat out rain for New York City. But you might hang on to snow for a little bit in far northern New Jersey. Scranton, it's snowing pretty good. Right here in kind of east central Pennsylvania, snowing good. Southeast Pennsylvania, all rain, snowing pretty good in Buffalo. But Buffalo, you're only going to get, I would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe as much as 7-hour period of snow, maybe 8, which is a pretty decent period of snow. But if you're gonna pick up a lot of snow, it's got to be in that period because this dry slot comes and even some warm air. And guys, you might get some thunderstorms all the way up here a little bit later today. It's a dry slot, but you still have moisture. You just have more warm air advection, if that makes sense. The entire atmosphere changes. But here we are, when we switch up to the northeast, here comes this storm moving through. And this little it's not little, it's a pretty large area of snow. It might not be that intense, but it could be. We'll move in through New Hampshire, Vermont, upstate New York State, all the way up into Maine a little bit later. And then it'll kind of dissipate, and then the main just chunk of the storm will kind of develop, and this will become the huge part of the storm. But southeast sections of Canada is going to get hit hard. I had a couple people wondering if they can mention Canada. I already struggle enough with certain areas in the U.S. I definitely need to learn Canada in some slow times, maybe over the summer. So maybe I can talk about you folks in Canada. You guys have always been very kind, very awesome, especially when I was talking about Newfoundland and Nova Scotia with some of these storms. You guys were very, very nice, and I would love to show you guys some love if I can fit in time here in the future. But, we're getting into this afternoon, 3 p.m. or so. You got snow beginning to enter Western Mass, but there's going to be a period, I would say, later this afternoon around dinner time where if you guys are going to see snow in southern New England, it's going to be in that period, and then it's going to quickly go to rain. Boston, we were thinking you guys were going to see a several-hour period, not a several-hour, but a few-hour period of some accumulating snow. The latest model guidance shows warm. I can say this is one of those situations where I feel like it's trended warm at the last second. Not cold, but warm. So winter weather fans are moaning and groaning. I get it. Trust me. It's happened so many times in here in the Carolinas over the last several years where it's looking great, and then within 6 hours, 12 hours of the storm, it trends to crap. So I get it. But, you're going to have a period of accumulating snow this afternoon and this evening in southern New England, depending on where you are. If you're along the coastal regions, probably going to stay all rain. But then this is going to turn into just a wind-driven rain. Long Island, it's going to be raining like crazy this evening. You might even get some rumbles of thunder, and I'll stop it right here. This is around 10 p.m. tonight. It's snowing good, all-out winter storm, snowstorm, and far northern sections of New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, snowing good. But the coastal regions of Maine is going to just struggle with mixing. You really are. I'm going to switch it to the HRRR model, the long range. But whoever picks up the snow they're going to get in the beginning of this storm, man, there is a ton of moisture with this storm. But you see all these storms out in the ocean south of southern New England. These storms are actually robbing some of the moisture up here. A lot of heavy moisture, but it's robbing kind of the more broadness, if you will, and just massive shield of precipitation on the northern extent of the storm, I think. Plenty of moisture, but it's short-lived. And there's a lot of warm air advection, meaning warm air mixing to the surface, mixing issues, almost to the point where you're switching to rain. I mean, you're even trying to mix all the way up here into southeast Canada. But I'll stop it right here. This is about 3 a.m. Tomorrow morning. The coastal regions is beginning to mix with rain, but all these other areas just inland into Maine, I'm talking like nuclear snowfall rates. It is going to be puking heavy, wet snow. This moves through. It might switch to rain all the way up into Caribou, guys. And then cold air immediately moves back in behind it, but not very cold air. So mixing, big time mixing issues with this storm. We look at snowfall. Some of this has already fell, but the National Weather Service still going for total wise with this storm. Around 8 to 9 inches in Indianapolis. Up here in the northwest Ohio, still 8 to 10 inches. Detroit over half a foot. Cleveland, you're going to pick up whatever snow you get this morning, and then it's going to probably end and switch to rain. They're still going for north central Ohio to see 3 to 5 inches of snow. Let me know what you're seeing in Cincinnati. I just, this area, I mentioned a couple days ago how it was a wild card area where you could potentially get more. This is not going to end up being like the storm you got back over the weekend where you ended up picking several inches of snow up in this region right here. Just be lucky you got snow on that. That's all I got to say, because I don't think this is going to develop. It's already developing right now, and I don't think this is materializing for this area down here, which you got to give it to the National Weather Service. They said it all along. They got the first one wrong, but I think they've gotten the second one right. They didn't believe the HRRR model. They said, hey, temperatures were going to be a huge issue, and I think they've done very well. But let me know. They might be seeing, let me know somehow maybe Evansville picked up several inches of snow overnight. I don't know. I wasn't up, but it looks like it's snowing and it's raining in those areas right now. But Detroit, Chicago, let me know what you guys see. I feel like maybe you guys can overachieve. But the New England Northeast area, you're going to pick up all your snow at the front end thump of the snow, of the storm. But it's going to snow pretty heavily at the beginning. It's going to be beautiful, heavy, wet snow in this area. But you're going to get all of it at the beginning, and then you're going to mix the rain, and then potentially get dry slided. So this is between now and tomorrow afternoon. It's still snowing in some of these areas with some of this back end moisture. But here it comes in northern and north central areas of Pennsylvania and to all of New York State except New York City. If you're going to get snow, you're going to get in the beginning of the storm today. And then, Mass still predicting several inches of snow from this, especially the higher elevations. Even northwest Connecticut still predicting a few inches of snow. Vermont, New Hampshire, higher elevations, more snow. This is a temperature-driven storm. So the higher you up, the colder it is, the more snow you get. When you get into the valleys, it's going to snow, but it's probably going to have a little bit of a harder time accumulating. Now, there's a lot of snow on the ground in these regions, so it's going to be snowing on top of snow, which should be the case in January. But, let me know what you guys see up here for sure. Coastal regions of Maine is going to struggle with mixing. We've known that, but who knows? You might be in for a surprise, but as soon as you get inland, widespread over foot snowfall totals. If not a foot, maybe 8 to 10 inches, and then maybe a 1.5 foot in certain areas. My folks down here kind of in the mid-Atlantic and the higher elevations of West Virginia, western Maryland, this is moving in right now. So, several inches of snow in the higher elevations, probably a lot of sleet mixing in all these areas, western Maryland, West Virginia, northern VA. But look at this, ice also. So you're going to be dealing with some freezing rain in this area. Some areas could sneak in a 1/4 inch of ice, just depending on how high up you are, things like that. But a few inches of snow with a little bit of ice, probably a good bit of sleet mixed in with this. It's going to be a real wintry mess down here. And I'll probably look at this. I want to see what kind of watches and warnings you guys have down here, because kind of did this on the fly here. Just want to see. And believe it or not, you guys only have winter weather advisories in this area. So, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gets switched to a warning. We'll see what happens. But let's talk about the severe weather and ongoing this morning in the southeast. You got storms moving through the southeast. In fact, we'll switch it to the Tallahassee radar and get off and stop talking about winter weather for a second. And Tallahassee radar. You got a tornado warning ongoing right now as of 6:45 Eastern time, which I know the time zone switches somewhere in here. That's wild. I went down to, where did I go down here to chase a tropical storm? And wherever I was, it was funny. I would go from one side of the town and the time zone would change, and the other side of the town, the time zone was different. But anyways, let's switch this to the rate reflectivity and kind of get a look at this. And this is an intense line of storms, guys. If you're anybody ahead of this line of storms, like out here in Tallahassee, we'll kind of zone out here. Come on, zone out for me. If you're anybody in this region right into here, please be aware, because this line of storms is coming. You got ongoing tornado warnings right here north of Panama City. Let's see if we can see what's going on with the velocity scan, and we're just getting in radar image. Make sure there's no CC drop here. I don't see any, but there is, or it looks like a radar indicated tornado warning right into here. But hopefully you guys are staying safe. But if you're in Tallahassee this morning, these storms are knocking on your doorstep. You still even got a severe thunderstorm warning as far north as, up here in south and southern areas of Alabama and southeast Alabama. So you lose some of the ingredients once you get up here, but these can be some intense storms out ahead of this. So look at the southeast and how this can unfold today. We'll keep this rolling. This is going to be more so. I think there will be a severe weather threat as far north as Columbia, but I think it'll be more so just some rumbles of thunder, lightning, potentially some heavy rain, but some dynamics. A warm sector will try to build right into this, right ahead of the storm, with dew points will rise into the 60s, temperatures potentially in the 70s, that will quickly try to build kind of a sector of ingredients that's going to be supportive of severe weather. But at the end of the day, it's very fleeting. You're running out of time, which is good. But down here, watch out. In the areas of northern Florida, southeast Georgia, you could get some nasty storms later this afternoon. Savannah could be knocking on your doorstep later this afternoon into this evening. So watch out. Jacksonville, maybe, right around dinner time, maybe a couple hours after. And then these storms, like I said, they try to get their act together in eastern South Carolina and North Carolina. And Orangeburg, maybe the Myrtle Beach, Charleston could have some rocky weather a little bit later this evening. And we'll go on and switch it to North Carolina. And here's these storms right into here. Right here. If we stop it right here, it's about 5 p.m. We'll flip it to about 8 p.m. Look how these storms really try to get their act together right before they exit the East Coast. And if you're in the Outer Banks and any of these coastal plains of North Carolina all the way down to Wilmington, please watch out for a quick spin up tonight. There's a possibility it can happen. But after it's over, it's over. Then some snowfall begins to enter the mountains of North Carolina, while you still have severe thunderstorms on the other side of North Carolina. So, it happens. South central U.S., you have quieted down. Maybe some snow showers begin to rain showers drift into central Missouri a little bit later today. And this evening, and maybe some snow showers drifting to Kansas later overnight tonight. But other than that, pretty quiet day today in the south central U.S. And I mean, look at this. Probably some snow showers are going to drift. And I haven't mentioned this. We'll flip it back to the southeast actually. And I didn't really mention this for you folks, but you could have some snow showers to drift as far south as Nashville a little bit later overnight tonight. And you might wake up to some snow flurries flying around Nashville. It's certainly possible, but. We go to the north central U.S., guys. Chicago, certainly we'll see how far north the snow makes it for you folks in Milwaukee. Maybe you can have a period of moderate snow a little bit later this morning, and then it pulls through, and then some back-end energy starts to fly through, and a lot of back-end snow showers all the way into Illinois. Lake effect snow machine kind of kicks off just a little bit off Lake Michigan, where you could get some snowfall just southeast of Lake Michigan. And even areas into far western Michigan can certainly see some lake effect snow into the overnight hours into tomorrow morning. So, and then another system flies through. We'll talk about that a little bit tonight. But let's switch gears here. I'm not going to stay on this long. We'll talk more on it, tonight. But I think active times are ahead. We finally get rid of the system we're dealing with right now, and then immediately we'll have another area. We got to watch for a storm signal. Here in the Great Lakes region, I know this is pretty small on the screen. I'll zone into some areas tonight, but I'm going to fly through this really quick. Still dealing with the ridge, so it's all rain all the way up here in the southern sections of the Ohio Valley states. But it might be cold enough for a period of moderate snow for Chicago. Watch out later this weekend, maybe even southern Michigan. This will try to fly into areas of Maine. And then we'll watch another signal. Another little week says there's tons of moisture, tons of rain. We're getting into next Monday, another area. And then what happens, what's going on, guys, there's an Arctic boundary that's going to pivot back and forth and eventually start to sag south and southeast. Along this boundary, you got pieces of energy, low pressures that fly around basically this road for these, basically avenue for these low pressures to go through. So you keep having amplification of moisture, of Gulf moisture getting pulled across this cold air, which is sitting right here. So as we're getting the date right in here, as we're getting into Tuesday morning, another big winter storm shows up. Now, that's still 156 hours out. It's going to change some. But the next winter storm shows a freezing rain event for Oklahoma, southeast Kansas, Missouri, a winter storm. Southern areas of Missouri stays rain. And this shows another big winter storm for areas of Illinois into the Great Lakes region. And then the Arctic boundary sags a little bit further south. We're getting into about a week out from this point. week from today, here comes another area of moisture. That Arctic boundary continues to kind of sag south. Therefore, cold air is further southeast. The storm track is a little further southeast. And look, another winter storm shows up for northern Missouri. Some snow tries to make it into Tennessee, Kentucky, yada, yada, yada. The details are murky. We know that. And then the cold air sags some more. Can we get something else that pops up right here while the cold air is in place in the southeast and knocks down the southeast ridge temporarily? Who knows? Anybody's guess. My guess would be no. And I'm not trying to be negative, guys, but I've seen this story before. But here we go. Same thing with the GFS. We'll look at tropical tidbits. Here comes this system flying through midway this weekend. Could deliver some snow for areas like Chicago, Detroit. That moves through. Low pressure delivers more rain early next week for the southeast. And then the Arctic boundary right into here. Here it comes. Another winter weather event for the Ohio Valley. Midway next week. Looks totally different than the Euro, though. But it shows kind of that same scenario as the Euro does, 7 to 8 days out, but that's 7 to 8 days out. Arctic boundary sagging across this region. And kind of winter weather riding along the cold area side. Low pressure flies across the southeast. And this shows a big winter storm right here as we get into the later part of next work week. And really just kind of a weird look, but I could see it. When you have overrunning into Arctic air, this moves through. And then what happens after that? Another additional low pressure forms. We're way past 10 days. And then, yeah, it's a tough one to figure out, guys. But I can tell you, if you really want to take a look at this Arctic boundary, this is temperatures compared to average in Celsius. But in general, this is what I mean by Arctic boundary, guys. This is warmer than average temperatures. This is obviously colder than average temperatures. And you got some kind of big boundary that is very just kind of stalling out or sagging really slowly south. And it wants to keep trying to kind of beat down this ridge right here, but it's struggling. And then here comes another reinforcing shot of Arctic air. This comes down. But man, look at this ridge. It just does not want to budge. Finally, it gets beat down 10 days from now. But 10 days out in the model world is an eternity, guys. It really is. And then some cold air blasts through. But I don't know, guys. It's tough. We're dealing with a southeast ridge in the southeast. And it's pretty much ruining any chances for winter weather for the foreseeable future in the immediate southeast. But if you live in the western areas of the deep south and mid-south, you could be far enough northwest to get into some winter weather type issues. So we'll continue to watch that, but I think some active times are ahead, guys. We'll continue to keep you guys updated. God bless all y'all. Have yourselves a great and safe day, and I'll be with y'all this evening.